Hello, good evening. Thanks for being with us tonight here on the Hill. I'm Blake Burman. So at this hour, out on the road, Vice President J.D. Vance standing by ICE officers in Minnesota, meeting with leaders, minus the governor and the mayor.
There's been a very unique, very Minneapolis-specific reaction to our enforcement of federal immigration laws. What I'm trying to do here today is understand why that is.
And right now, over the Atlantic, President Trump set to land shortly after his European mission. The posts on Air Force One that has him now pointing to the polls. Also tonight, small town treasure, how the competition against China is now running through an Arkansas town, a lithium boom. What that means for our national security and that bitter blast. Have you felt it yet? A massive winter storm bearing down on 2/3 of the country tonight. This is it, and it's on the move. Tonight, we will show you where it is headed. But first tonight, back from abroad and a presidential pivot to focus here at home. President Trump set to return to the White House tonight from Davos, Switzerland, a trip he views as a success in setting up a framework for Greenland. But as he heads back to the White House, he's also railing against new polling that shows a bleak picture of the American economy. Half the country now telling the New York Times that they feel that they are worse off than they were a year ago. And that includes 52%, you can see it here, of independents. The president slamming this very poll, saying it's, quote, tremendously negative to me, and that he will be adding this to a lawsuit against the Times. Now, Trump is slated next week to head to Iowa. Critical midterm seats up for grabs there as part of a nationwide tour that the White House says will focus on touting the president's affordability agenda. The good news for Americans tonight, look at this. We've been talking about this, right? Gas prices falling, $2.85 a gallon, give or take roughly, and that is 30 cents lower than 1 year ago. Inflation slightly lower since Trump re-entered the White House as well. 2.7% right now. But Americans still feeling the pinch of higher prices. Electricity costs, for example, jumping close to 7% from the year prior. Food right now up 3%. And the frustration over costs taken out today on healthcare executives testifying up on Capitol Hill.
You are clearly putting corporate profits ahead of patients.
All of you are posting record profits, approving millions of dollars worth of CEO compensation packages, executive bonuses, and paying your shareholders. Let me tell you something. People are really struggling.
We're starting tonight with the issues, many of them that matter to you. One of those lawmakers questioning healthcare executives, and you heard the bipartisan focus there. Florida Congresswoman Kat Cammack was in the room. She joins us live in a moment. But first, to our Kelly Meyer over at the White House as we await the president's return. Hello, Kelly.
Hey there, Blake. The president making his way back here to the White House. He is just gaggled with reporters there on Air Force One. We're listening back to that for any news. But we do know that he has an ambitious schedule when he returns here to Washington, D.C. He's going to be hitting the road for 2026 midterms. His chief of staff revealing the president plans to travel once a week to deliver a speech somewhere in the United States. And it's all a part of his effort to get his affordability message out and to campaign like it's 2024 for Republican candidates up in the election in 2026. Here's more from the president.
We're doing great on affordability. You know, that's a word that the Democrats made up. They're the ones that caused the problem.
And, you know, just this week in the White House briefing room, the president said he must have bad PR or something because that message, he says, isn't getting across the American people. So he's taking it to the road himself. Now, we saw him late last year do this in an effort to sell his affordability agenda. But this will be a significant increase in travel, not only for the president, but for his cabinet officials as well. And generally, people are less likely to vote in the midterms during non-presidential years because the president won't be on that ticket. But he's going to be campaigning as if he is on the ballot in the midterm. So President Trump hinted at a bit of what he could be talking about next week. He repeated his push to stop Wall Street from buying up single-family homes. He talked about that in Davos. He also says Republicans should really make health care their issue. So he'll be talking about that a lot. Now, Iowa, we know, will be the president's first stop on his midterm blitz. That's already coming up this Tuesday, Blake.
Several races there up and down the ballot. Our Kelly Meyer live tonight as the president is about to land. Kelly, thank you. So right there in the affordability conversation is the issue of health care. And today, 5 executives from the largest health insurance companies in this country faced a bipartisan grilling on Capitol Hill over the issue of costs.
The health insurance gets a cut, the pharmacy benefit manager gets a cut, the drug manufacturer gets a cut, and the patient gets screwed.
Have you ever personally looked in a patient in the eye and explained why your company denied them a medication their doctor said that was needed? I practiced pharmacy for 40 years. I'm the one who had to look the patient in the eye.
Joining me now, Congresswoman Kat Cammack, Republican from Florida, member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, in the room questioning those healthcare executives today. Congresswoman, thanks for being back with us. Haven't seen you in a while. Nice to have you here on the Hill. So you know how this goes. There's a hearing. You get a lot of sound bites out there, a lot of anger, a lot of concern for the constituents. And then the question is, what comes next? So was anything accomplished today for folks who just simply want their healthcare costs lowered?
Well, certainly, and it's great to be back with you. You know, I think one thing that Americans can take away is that the issue of healthcare, it's a bipartisan one. What you just saw was a perfect example of what happened for hours today. Republicans and Democrats going after these CEOs that have prioritized profits over patients. And you saw Buddy Carter from Georgia, AOC from New York. We collectively have all highlighted the failures of the system, because what we have today, it's a sick care system, not a healthcare system. And it seems like these insurance companies are more intent on perpetuating a system of maintenance of chronic conditions rather than prevention of them. And so I think Americans, one, saw, wow, this is something that both Republicans and Democrats can come together on. So there's a little bit of light there. And I think people were surprised about that.
Here's the president over time, Congresswoman, from the first administration until just the other day. And then we'll pick it up on the other side.
We're going to be announcing health care, another form of health care, in about 2 weeks. We're going to be introducing a tremendous health care plan sometime hopefully prior to the end of the month. We want a health care system where we pay the money to the people instead of the insurance companies. And I tell you, we're going to be working on that very hard over the next short period of time.
I know the White House put out its health care plan, a framework. It was also a one-sheeter. So why should Americans, Congresswoman, believe that that there will be some sort of material change going forward?
Listen, Washington has a terrible track record of actually following through on what they say they're going to do. In the case of President Trump, though, in the last year, and we just marked 1 year of the second Trump administration, talk about promises made, promises kept. I mean, we have a laundry list of things that the president campaigned on that he has followed through with. And when it comes to healthcare, I know I'm a bit biased, but the Access Act, it is the bill that would expand health savings accounts, and it would actually divert that subsidy into those accounts so that the people could choose what kind of healthcare they deserve, what they want, what they need, rather than an insurance company getting those $400 billion. This is the path forward, and the president. One of the things, though,
the Congresswoman, that President Trump said at the end of 2025 is that the health insurance, executives would be at the White House soon. The oil executives were there before the health insurance executives were there. Does he need to call them over now?
Well, I can't speak to what conversations have occurred in the White House, but I can tell you that it has been like pulling teeth to get these executives on the phone, to get responses. I think that today was a very good first step in holding them accountable. What I had asked them was directly about their compensation and how that is impacted by their denial rate. There's no accountability for when a life-saving drug or procedure is denied by a health insurance company. The executive pay continues to go on because it's all about profits. They know that that has to change. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of conversations happening in the House, the Senate, and the White House. But at the end of the day, I think Americans are starting to see that this is a turning point and that we are united in Congress on fixing a broken system.
52% of independents, Congresswoman, say that the economy is worse off for them. Speaking of change, does the president and the vice president need to make some sort of change here?
Well, it's pretty tough to turn the Titanic on a dime. We know that under Biden administration, there was incredible historic inflation, and it's going to take time for a lot of the amazing policies that we've worked on to take shape. So we're entering tax season in exactly a week. I think Americans who are going to be bringing home $4,000 on average more in their take-home pay, they're going to see the largest tax cut the middle class has ever experienced in American history. You have no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. All these things are going to take root. When we get to the end of April, when we get to tax day, that's when people are going to be like, wow, things are changing.
Well, I hope we talk before the end of April, but we'll bring you back then as well and see where the American public is then. Congresswoman Kat Cammack represents the Gainesville area down there in Florida with us tonight. Congresswoman, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Meantime, go Gators.
Wherever you are, brace for impact. Maybe even including in Gainesville, a 2,000-mile-long winter storm bearing down on more than 130 million Americans. Why forecasts are predicting this could be the worst storm in a decade, plus going on offense. How a town in Arkansas is jumping into the rivalry between the U.S. and China, and tense times. Jack Smith up on the Hill today.
We have an admission that an article.
Chairman, the gentleman's time has expired by now 34 seconds.
It gets more than 5 minutes. How many times are you going to interrupt me?
I'm Blake Burman. I'll see you back here 4 minutes when you return. All right, so if you are carrying a phone, using a laptop, charging an EV, you know the importance of a lithium battery. Now, lithium is a metal that's extracted from the earth that is found in batteries, but not only that, even like ceramics and glass, some of your medicines as well. The U.S. just so happens to be a relatively small player in the lithium market, especially when you compare it to China, which is the second largest producer anywhere across the globe. But a small town in Arkansas is now hoping it can close the gap with China. That's where we find our Nancy Liu on the ground, finding out what's going on there with a lithium boom. I find this fascinating, Nancy.
It is fascinating, Blake. This is saltwater brine from underground, and this is lithium that's battery grade. Here at Standard Lithium in El Dorado, Arkansas, they've perfected a new chemical process for extraction, and there is a lot of lithium to be extracted from this part of the country.
This, beneath our feet, is an unconventional lithium resource. It hasn't been developed to date because it needed a new technology to unlock it.
Beneath our feet here in southwestern Arkansas, about 9,000 feet down, is a layer of saltwater brine with up to 19 million tons of lithium reserves, more than enough to meet American demand. It's part of the Smackover Formation, which stretches across several southern states, and the highest concentrations of lithium are in southwestern Arkansas and eastern Texas. Standard's president, Andy Robinson, says years of testing have led to a highly efficient method for processing the brine.
We extract the lithium, but then continuously and at the same time, we're pumping it back down like a mile or two away, and that maintains pressure in the formation. So the brine comes up, and a day, 24 hours later, it's back in the formation again.
Without the lithium.
Minus the lithium.
America currently produces just 6,000 tons of lithium a year, yet demand is expected to hit 500,000 tons by 2030. So there's a heavy reliance on China, which controls nearly 70% of the battery market. Lithium is essential in a wide range of consumer and military products, making the supply chain a major national security concern.
This is about having control over the resources that you need and that your society, your war fighter, your military, your industrial complex, everyone will need access to this particular critical mineral for the foreseeing decades.
With $225 million in federal grant money, Standard Lithium will soon build a major plant to the west in Louisville. It means hundreds of new jobs amid high hopes for a lengthy lithium boom in America.
I think the nation is going to be very excited for us to bring this natural resource to the United States, which has historically been in other countries.
Everyone understands how much catching up we have to do, but I think everyone's aligned in helping us get there.
And Standard Lithium aims to begin commercial extraction and sales by 2028. Blake?
Wow. Our Nancy Liu in Arkansas for us tonight. Nancy, thank you. With me now, the Republican congressman from that district who wants it to become the lithium capital of the U.S. He is Bruce Westerman with us tonight here on the Hill. Congressman, thanks for being with us. You know this, of course, but for our audience here on News Nation or those listening to us on Sirius XM, your district is parts of Little Rock, and then you even border Texas and Oklahoma. It's not really the place that you would think would be on the front lines of the battle against China, but here you are.
It's a great opportunity that we have in southwest Arkansas with that Smackover Formation. As you reported, 19 million tons of lithium there, and you're talking about something that's worth anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 a ton. That's before you make it into a battery. So I think there's very bright days ahead for South Arkansas. This is an area that's used to oil and gas production. They've been extracting the brine for quite some time, making insulation materials out of it. And they've always known there was lithium in there. There's just never been such a demand for lithium as we're seeing now. So it's a huge opportunity to improve on our national security, on our mineral dominance, and on the economy of southwest Arkansas and the whole United States.
Yeah, so all of this, of course, or a lot of this, I should say, has come in focus, I would say, over the recent year when it comes to the minerals and the elements that China has and what we have here in the U.S. and how we need to catch up. For example, I'm looking at lithium production. Less than 1% of the world production is in the United States. 17% is in China. And when it comes to the reserves, we are still behind China. Here's a map of countries all across the globe. So if we're behind them on production and we're behind them on reserves, how do we catch up, Congressman?
We've got to be innovative, just like they are at Standard Lithium. You know, this is a new direct lithium extraction process that they've developed there at Standard Lithium, and it could be a game changer by getting this the lithium out of brine instead of doing hard rock mining. And as was mentioned in your segment, they're putting the brine right back into the ground. So they pull it up, take the lithium out, and put it back in. So very little environmental impact as they mine for this lithium in this way.
How many jobs there in your district and across your state?
If you look at the multiplier effect on it, it's going to be thousands of jobs, and not just jobs. These are going to be careers, very good paying jobs where people can raise families and build communities. And, you know, rural America needs this. We've had this not in my backyard policy or mindset in America, and it's caused all of these critical minerals to be imported from China and other places when we've got them right here in the ground in the United States.
Like I said, his district there on the front line of this all. Bruce Westerman with us tonight. Nice to see you, sir. Thanks for letting us know what's going on in your backyard. Hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, Blake. Have a great night.
Of course. You as well. Still to come, there is this, potentially in your backyard now or soon to come. A catastrophic storm barreling across the country right now. There's even reports of exploding trees, cracking trees. Could that be happening in some states? Why one meteorologist thinks this storm could be worse than the blizzard of '96. Plus, Elon Musk answering an out-of-this-question world. Do aliens really exist? He says if anyone knows, it's him. His answer when we return. Approach at 6:30 here on the East Coast, bottom of the hour, some of the top stories that we are watching this evening into our newsroom. And whether it's 6:30, 5:30, 4:30, 3:30, wherever you are tonight, chances are you are keeping your eyes on the weather because nearly half of the country right now is bracing for what could be the biggest winter storm in a decade. Snow and ice threaten to cover much of the country from, you can go down to West Texas all the way up to New England. The Texas governor, Greg Abbott, the North Carolina governor, Josh Stein, for example, both today activating emergency resources.
It's hugely important that you, your families, your businesses, you begin that preparation today.
Our greatest concerns are potential power outages and road safety over the coming days.
Joining us now from our Nexstar affiliate, DC News Now, their chief meteorologist, Jackie Layer. with us tonight. Jackie, so good to have you in. Normally when I jump on DC News Now, I do the politics stuff. Here you are on News Nation doing the weather because, my gosh, this is the story that most are following this evening. You see that band all across the country, or most of it. Who's going to get the worst of this, potentially?
I know. Well, Blake, it really looks like the worst of it will be down, down towards Texas, as well as over towards Arkansas, parts of Tennessee, and even down towards northernmost parts of Mississippi, where there is that ice storm warning that has been issued. We also have those winter storm warnings in all those areas shaded in pink. I really think it's those areas that will see the worst of the system. We're talking that ice accumulation of at least 1/4 of an inch. And whenever you're talking about ice accumulation, at least 1/4 of an inch, that's when you're talking about the potential for power outages, because that ice, it accumulates on those power lines, it accumulates on those tree branches, and again, that will bring out that power. We could see that power outage, for multiple days, when not only you're talking about those crews trying to make sure that they are getting out there trying to restore that power. I mean, it's going to be complicated because we're talking about that ice, very slick conditions in all those areas. And some of that ice accumulation, that could be record-breaking as well. Also talking about extreme colds off towards the north. I mean, the northern plains, it is typical that they get this cold, but we're talking extreme cold warnings where those temperatures will be well below normal there. But also back to Texas, like I was talking about, Dallas-Fort Worth could be breaking some of their record cold high temperatures. And also record cold.
Yeah,
low
so
temperatures.
so record temperatures down there in Dallas, right? Here in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, for example, this could be the worst. I use the phrase worst, but let's put it this way: the most amount of snow we've seen in a decade, whether you like the snow or not. What are some other spots across the country that might be getting some weather that they haven't seen in years?
Not only, the DMV, DC, I mean, Boston could be getting some of the most amount of snow that they've seen for quite some time. I think since at least 4 years ago, so not too long ago, but something that they haven't seen in a little while. But yes, I would say all those areas that are shaded in pink there, where we had the winter storm warnings, and then I also want to show the ice total impacts. All those areas shaded in the deep red on your screen, that's the major category. There is a little splotch on this map. I want to say that's over right around this area, northern Mississippi, or back out towards the interior parts of the Carolinas. I mean, extreme category, that is when you're talking, a lot of power outages and something very historic in these areas. Not only record-breaking, but historic in some of these areas.
Wow, Jackie Layer with our next star station, DC News Now, who's going to have a busy weekend going forward, as a lot of Americans are across the country watching this. Jackie, good luck. Thanks for being with us tonight. Appreciate it. Meantime, the Vice President, J.D. Vance, stopping in Minnesota today. He even referenced the weather when he was there on the ground. He was there, though, in hopes of bringing down the temperature over immigration operations in that state. Vance saying today that he is optimistic that there might be more cooperation between the state and the Department of Homeland Security.
I actually think that there's some hope, some reason to think that there's going to be better cooperation in the weeks and months to come. I think that because I've talked to some of the local officials here, I think there are reasons to believe that these people are going to step up and actually ask the cops to protect our ICE officers when they're being assaulted.
His visit, of course, follows more than 2 weeks of tense protests against ICE in that state, including an agent-involved shooting that killed a woman. Our Allie Bradley live in Minnesota this evening, traveling with the Vice President tonight. Hello, Allie.
Yeah, hey, Blake, a mention of the weather here. Feels like -23 in the Twin Cities. The Vice President making his way here to, of course, reaffirm the administration's commitment to, quote, restoring law and order in Minnesota. Now, when he was here, he actually held a roundtable. He met with local business leaders. He also met with federal law enforcement, who he says that the administration fully supports in this Operation Metro Surge here across the Twin Cities. And as expected, he also pointed the blame back at the Democratic lawmakers that are in the Twin Cities and in Minnesota, saying that they're the cause for a lot of the issues that we're seeing down here on the ground. Now, the Vice President says working with local entities is the best way to facilitate reasonable enforcement of the law and also a way to turn down the temperature, saying that he would rather not have thousands of agents and officers here. Take a listen.
The reason why things have gotten so out of hand is because of failure of cooperation between the state and local authorities and what these guys are trying to do. They're not even doing targeted immigration enforcement. They are trying to protect ICE officers who are doing immigration enforcement.
Now, the vice president also called on the mayor and others to tell local entities to cooperate and collaborate with federal law enforcement in their operations here across the Twin Cities. But the mayor actually learned about the visit last night on Cuomo. He said he wasn't invited to that roundtable. And then following up with the vice president, he did not meet with the governor nor the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Frey, here in the Twin Cities. Blake.
Our Allie Bradley live once again in Minnesota for us. Allie, stay warm and thank you. The gloves, meantime, coming off up on Capitol Hill today is the former Justice Department Special Counsel Jack Smith defending his investigations of President Trump during the Biden administration. As you might imagine, the hearing contentious, with Smith maintaining the president broke the law by trying to overturn the 2020 election and holding classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, while Republicans say the cases were politically charged.
It was always about politics. And to get President Trump, they were willing to do just about anything. Jack Smith was never properly appointed. In fact, he couldn't be properly appointed because he was never confirmed by the Senate.
The good chairman started by saying it's all about the politics. Well, maybe for them, but for us, it's all about the rule of law.
Smith testified that there was no political influence in his decisions, adding that he would do it again.
If asked whether to prosecute a former president based on the same facts today, I would do so regardless of whether that president was a Democrat or a Republican.
On his flight home from Davos, Switzerland, President Trump posting on Truth Social that he called for Smith to be prosecuted for his actions. Well, speaking of the president, at this hour headed back to the White House following that Davos trip where he claims a deal is in the works for Greenland. He says under a new agreement, the U.S. will have, quote, total access to the Danish Arctic territory. But so far, details remain scarce. Our Robert Sherman, live for us tonight once again in Davos with what happened there today. Hello, Robert.
Hey there, Blake. Well, I mean, this is certainly the talk of the town, the situation in Greenland and what exactly the future of transatlantic relations are going to look like. You point out that the fine details, they're being kept close to the vest by the White House. But what the president is saying, this is a long-term deal in premise. It gives the United States access, and it solves all the national security issues that they have. Here's what the president had to say.
Well, I'm not going to have to pay anything. We're going to have total access to Greenland. We're going to have all military access that we want. We're going to be able to put what we need on Greenland because we want it. We're talking about national security and international security.
Looking at the other side of the negotiating table, Greenland says that they welcome all these statements that have been coming from the president, but they're a little bit in the dark as to exactly how this will ultimately end. And then you have the Danish Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, who's in Brussels today for emergency EU meetings. She insists that as these negotiations carry on, Greenland is not getting sold, but she is open to the conversation about expanding the presence in the Arctic.
We are a sovereign state, and we cannot negotiate about that. But of course, we can discuss with the U.S. how we can strengthen our common cooperation on security in the Arctic region.
And the Danish went on to say today that they actually want a full-time permanent presence of NATO in the Arctic. We are expecting there to be more drills carried out by the alliance this year. Blake.
All right, Robert Sherman, live for us in Europe. Once again, Robert, thank you. Coming up, new numbers showing some prices for everyday items actually down. So why aren't Americans feeling it? And the posts from the president tonight about what you are saying about the future of this country. Full panel, other side of the break, when we return.
This is your prime time. News Nation, a different kind of prime. Diverse voices, fresh perspectives, with respect for all of us. This is America's new prime time, only on News Nation.
All right, we come in on a bit of breaking news now, 6:42 here on the East Coast. I've been telling you all hour that President Trump, on his way back from Europe, he just spoke to reporters on Air Force One, the president, and the reaction to his trip and what he expects to happen going forward. Watch.
It was great. It was great. That's going to be a great board. That'll be a board, I think, like no other, right? It's a board like no other. A lot of people joining. We just went out with the letters, and a lot of people are joining. Now we have a flight back, and we'll be landing in 4 hours and 45 minutes. And I'm going to be very late for dinner, but that'll be okay.
What are some of the elements of the Greenland concept that you can tell? There was
really a negotiation, but it's infinity. The time limit is infinity, meaning there is no time limit. It's forever. It's, you hear about 99 years, 50 years. It's forever. That was discussed. We can do anything we want. We can do military. We can do anything we want. And it's being negotiated, and let's see what happens. I think it'll be good.
Would the U.S. have
no price? There's no purchase price.
Would the U.S. have pockets of sovereignty over parts?
We have a lot of great things in the deal, and don't forget they're also good for Europe because when we're good, they're good, and if we're not good, that's not very good for them because we hold it all together. We're holding it all together.
President, does that actually give you control of land in Greenland? Does it give U.S. control ownership of land?
Yeah, whatever we want. Yeah. We're all going to work together, and actually NATO is going to be involved with us. We're going to be doing it in conjunction, parts of it in conjunction with NATO, which is really the way it should be.
But to be clear, will the U.S. own that?
We won't have any expense because we're not going to have expense. Other than building the Golden Dome. We're going to build the Golden Dome. And we'll have participation in that also. The cost of the Golden Dome, we'll have participation in that also, meaning with the expense of it. And it'll be like no other. I mean, our technology is incredible.
Is Denmark signed off on this, or are they on board with this concept? Is Denmark on board with this concept?
I think everyone likes it. I mean, I think. I'll let you know in about 2 weeks.
Have you spoken with Denmark about this plan?
Secretary General Mark is a great guy. He's a great guy, and he's spoken to everybody.
And when you spoke with the NATO Secretary General, did you talk about U.S. military presence in Greenland?
We talked about everything, and you saw him yesterday. He was interviewed on Brett Baer, and he was very happy. He was very convinced this is a good deal for everybody.
Ukraine, how did your conversation go with President Zelensky?
We had a conversation. I've had numerous conversations on Ukraine. It'd be nice to end that war. It costs us nothing. We make money. I don't want to make money, but we make money. Whereas Biden spent $350 billion stupidly and lost a lot of money. But it's not about the money. It's about 25 to 30,000 soldiers a month, mostly soldiers.
Are you ready to
a month are being killed.
Do you think that can you sign the security deal? Are you able to sign that?
Tom and Jared are right now on the way to Moscow, so we'll see how that works out. I had a good meeting, but I've had numerous good meetings with President Zelensky, and it doesn't seem to happen. It's funny. I put out a 35-year war in a day, a 32-year war in 2 days, and other wars. The worst was like 4 days. And this one goes on and on forever, and actually they may have been more complex.
Do you think that trilateral that the U.S., Russia, and Ukraine are having in Abu Dhabi this weekend leads to a trilateral between you, Putin, and Zelensky?
Look, it's all good. Anytime we meet, it's good. If you don't meet, nothing's going to happen. I mean, for the first 3 years, nobody met. Under Biden, nobody met. And one thing, if you don't meet, nothing's going to happen. So we are meeting, and we'll see what happens. I hope we can save a lot of lives. That's all.
Mr. President, what kind of concessions does Vladimir Putin need to make at this point?
He'll make concessions. Everybody's making concessions to get it done. Europe is going to be a part of it. It's got to be a part of it. Look, it's more for Europe than for me. I mean, I'm doing this more for Europe than for me. I'm doing it to save lives, number one. I'm doing it secondarily Europe. I'm not doing it so much for the it doesn't affect us very much. Other than the loss of lives, we're not affected by this deal. It's thousands of miles away. We're separated by an ocean. But I have an ability to get things done like this, and we'll see if I can get it done. I mean, it would never have gotten done. I thought Putin wanted the whole thing. Maybe he does, but he's not gonna be going there unless we don't make a deal. But we had a good meeting today with President Zelensky. I think a very good meeting.
What's the main holdup? What's the main holdup to getting a deal?
The main holdup is the same things that have been holding it up for the last year. Look, this is a war. This is Biden's war. This isn't my war. This is a war that should have never happened. But it's complex because you have beats and bounds. You have streets. You have rivers. You have everything. Where does it end? So it's a little bit complicated. But I've had that in 5 of the other wars. There are beats and bounds. It's a location. It's boundaries. And I got them done fast in days, and this one is just going on. And what's happened here is there were times when Putin didn't want to make a deal, times when Zelensky didn't want to make a deal, and it was like opposite times. Now I think they both want to make a deal, but we'll find out.
Did something change that makes you think that Putin and Zelensky now are serious about it?
Any predictions? There are no changes. I think that President Putin would like to make a deal. I think that President Zelensky would like to make a deal.
What did Zelensky say today? I mean, he came all the way there to meet you. What did he say?
He said he'd like to make a deal. I mean, there's not much you can say. People know the parameters. It's not like, we're discussing things that have been discussed for 6 or 7 months, and he came and he said he wants to make a deal because I wasn't necessarily sure. I think he should want to make a deal. It's pretty tough. It's really tough for the people of Ukraine. I'll tell you that.
Mr. President,
how they live without heat, where it's 20 degrees below zero, it's very cold. That's a colder climate for the most part than Canada. And they live without heat. I asked him, how do they do that? And he gave me an answer. It's pretty amazing what they do to live. There's no way to live. Yeah.
Back to Greenland. Can you elaborate more on we're trying to understand what exactly the concept is here. Is the U.S. going to actually take ownership of it?
We'll have something in 2 weeks. There's a good spirit to get something done, and we have to have a strong freedom. We have to have the ability to do exactly what we want to do. We have a great military. I built a great military. I did this in my first term. And continuation, big continuation. I think what we did with the defense companies was very important too, because we need things faster. We have the best weapons in the world by far. We showed that last week with Venezuela. We have the best weapons in the world. We have to make them faster.
How would it be any different than the current situation? The U.S. can
much different, much more detailed, much more generous to the United States. It's a much more generous deal. It has to be. And we're building a Golden Dome, and you see the way it works. That is so much better for us and for Europe to have that piece of ice covered by the Golden Dome.
You mentioned Venezuela. You've expressed optimism in your relationship with Delcy Rodriguez. Are you inclined to let her stay in power?
Well, right now they're very strong leadership. They're showing very strong leadership. I also spoke with Maria today, and who I like a lot. But Delcy's shown very strong leadership so far, I have to say. And we're moving in, to the United States, millions of barrels of oil as we speak. You know that. You see it. You see what's happening. Over 50 million barrels of oil is already moved or moving into the United States, and much more to come. And we're working with them, and they'll get some of that, and we're going to get some of that. And it'll be divided up, and our country will become richer, and that means our taxes are going to be going down, and they will do better. Venezuela is going to do better than they've ever done.
So if that continues,
even with us, taking a very fair piece of it, Venezuela will do better by far than they've ever done. It's going to be very very rich, and she has done a very good job.
Have you spoken with Jamie Dimon since the lawsuit?
No, I haven't spoken to him. No, he debanked me. So we'll see if that means anything, but I think it should. You shouldn't be debanked. You get debanked if you don't have money or if you default and you have this great company, and all of a sudden I was told, no, you can't do that. It's so wrong. And so I don't know what their excuse would be. Maybe their excuse would be the regulators. I don't know. But regardless, I guess it's a good lawsuit because every pundit has come out and said Trump has a great lawsuit here. You're not allowed to do what they did. Jamie Dimon, what he did, he's not allowed to do that.
Where do things stand with Iran? The U.S. has got sizable military assets.
You know, we have a lot of ships going that direction, just in case. We have a big flotilla going in that direction. And we'll see what happens. A big force. We have a big force going toward Iran. I'd rather not see anything happen, but we're watching them very closely. I stopped 837 hangings on Thursday. They would have been dead. Every one of them would have been hung. This is like from 1,000 years ago. This is an ancient culture. Very smart people, by the way, but it's an ancient culture. 837, mostly young men, were going to be hung on Thursday. And I said, if you hang those people, you're going to be hit harder than you've ever been hit. It'll make what we did to your Iran nuclear look like peanuts. And an hour before this horrible thing was going to take place, they canceled it. And they actually said they canceled it. They didn't postpone it. They canceled it. So that was a good sign. But we have an armada. We have a massive fleet heading in that direction. And maybe we won't have to use it. We'll see.
Would you like the supreme leader to step down or to go into exile?
I'll say right now, I don't want to get into that. But they know what we're looking at.
You said today that they want
there's a lot of killing going on.
You said today they want to talk and we'll talk. So if you set something up and they asked you to...
Yeah, I would. But, you know, we've talked to them a lot. They should have made a deal before we hit them with the nuclear, because we really, that was a devastating hit. That whole area is out of play. And if they try and do it again, they're going to have to go to another area. We'll hit them there too, just as easily, much more easily. Because that was very advanced. They were building that for 10 years. And they'd have to start anew. So, you know, that was a total obliteration.
Are you still planning to go ahead with those tariffs that you had mentioned and on the secondary tariffs, those affected by businesses in Iran, the 25% tariffs?
I am doing that, yeah. We're doing that. If you do business with Iran, you're going to have a tariff of 25%.
And when should that go into effect?
Effect very soon.
Do you still think there's a possibility that the UK or France could join the Board of Peace?
Well, I think they're going to want to. Look, most countries, some countries have a prohibition, and they're going to their legislatures and getting out. In most countries, the prime minister or the president can sign. You saw a lot of them today. Don't forget, the letter only went out 2 days ago. We had almost 30 people already, and very important countries. But there are some countries, like Italy, who told me she wants to sign. She wants to be desperately, but I think she has to go back to her legislative branch. And we have that with Poland, too. He said we want to, I mean, I was the one that endorsed him. He's great, by the way. He's doing a great job, Carol. But he has to get an approval. Some have to get an approval, some don't. Most don't, but some do. They have, I mean, a legal requirement to get an approval.
Do you envision being chairman of the Board of Peace past your second term in office?
I have the right to be if I want. I mean, I'll decide, see what happens. But they'd like me to be. It's in theory for life, but I'm not sure I want that. But it's going to do great work with Gaza and maybe other things. You know, it could be beyond Gaza. And we'll work in terms of the with the United Nations, who I've always said the United Nations has great potential, but they have not lived up to them. And I say 8 wars and I never spoke to them. You'd think I would have spoken to them a lot. but the United Nations has great potential. I think working with the Board of Peace is going to be a good thing for the United Nations.
Will you tell us who your Fed pick is?
said a couple of days ago that there would be something in the works where you can take money out of your 401k to help on purchasing a home. Is that something that the administration is working on?
I'm not a huge fan of. Other people like it. They're talking about taking money out to put a deposit down on a home. And one of the reasons I don't like it is that their 401ks are doing so well. You know, 401ks are up 80, 90% in some cases. And, you know, you're talking about a lot of people. We're talking about very mainstream. And they're really doing, and the housing market's good, but the 401ks are doing much better than the housing market. I like keeping their 401ks in great shape. I like keeping their 401ks. I'm not a huge fan of putting down a deposit. I'm not. I'm so happy with the way 401ks are doing. But you have people tell me they're up 88%. And over the period of a year, over a full year, it's going to be, I mean, it's going to be close to 100%. Yeah, Steve.
You tell us back to the Board of Peace.
All right, we've been listening to President Trump aboard Air Force One. This is tape playback as the president is now on his way back from Davos, Switzerland. Of course, that trip before the world's elite and world leaders, meeting with European leaders, one of the main storylines there. Greenland and the deal that the president says he struck with world leaders. They're saying, quote, that it's, quote, infinity. We can do what we want. It's being negotiated. The president of the United States on his way back. Our coverage continues here on News Nation. I thank you so much for watching us tonight. I'm Blake Burman. I hand it over to Elizabeth Vargas right now.